I'm sitting at Pong Beach right now, just at the north end where the rocks start, near where that big hotel used to be before they tore it down. If you know Phuket, you'll know exactly where I mean. It's early evening and the sun's going down behind me, casting long shadows across the sand. I'm 54 years old, and if I'm being completely honest with you, I want to erase the last 28 years of my life. If I could go back to 1997 and start again, even if it meant losing everything I know now, I would do it in a heartbeat. I'd give up the rest of my life just to have that 1 year back to make different choices. I can see Karen Beach in the distance to my left, and all these massive resorts that weren't here when I first arrived. When I got to Phuket, half of this coastline was undeveloped. Now it's wall-to-wall hotels and condominiums. I live in one of those condominiums, actually. The smaller, white building, about 2 kilometres from here near the hill. Not that it matters which one, because I don't own it. I'm just renting like I've been renting for nearly 3 decades. The sea looks calm today, but I wouldn't go in it even if you paid me. I'm not being dramatic, I'm not suicidal, but if I'm honest, I sometimes think about what it would be like to just not have to deal with any of this anymore. Not have to wake up every morning knowing that I destroyed my own future with my own hands. I came to Thailand with dreams. I came with ambition. I came with a plan to build the life I thought I deserved. But what actually happened is that I got exactly what I was trying to avoid, except worse. So much worse. And the worst part is that I did it to myself. Nobody forced me. Nobody tricked me. I walked into this trap with my eyes half open, and I stayed in it year after year after year, even when I knew it was destroying me. There are 2 parts to this story I need to tell you about. The first is why I came to Thailand in the first place. That goes back to my childhood and my parents' divorce. And while divorce is common enough that it's hardly worth mentioning, what made it difficult for me was the things I saw and heard living with my mum afterward. I was 13 when they separated, and by the time I was 15, my mother had a parade of boyfriends coming through our house. I don't judge her for wanting companionship, but as a teenage boy, having to hear certain things through the bedroom wall, having to meet strange men at the breakfast table, having to watch my mother prioritize her social life over the fact that her son was right there in the next room. It did something to me. So I became disgusted by it. Not by relationships or women, by the selfishness of it, by the way seemed to forget she had a child whenever she wanted something for herself. And I promised myself that when I grew up, I would never be in a relationship like that. I would never be with someone who put their own desires above everything else, especially above family. Thailand was in my mind because we'd gone there once, years before the divorce, when I was about 11. It was one of the last good memories I have of us as a family. We went to Phuket, actually stayed at a little bungalow place on Karen Beach. My parents got along. I felt safe. It was perfect. So when everything fell apart at home, Thailand became my escape fantasy, the place where things had been good, the place I could go to start over. I need to stop here for a minute because there's a group of Russian tourists being extremely loud. And I'm trying to think, right, they've moved on. The reason I'm telling you all this is because I want you to understand that this is a warning. Thailand isn't some magical place where all your problems disappear. It's just a country. People are people everywhere, no matter where they're from or how they grew up. I thought I understood that, but I didn't. Not really. The moment that ruined my life happened before I even did anything wrong. I put my biological urges ahead of common sense. I put the fantasy of what I wanted ahead of reality. Not because I was trying to hurt myself, but because I thought this was what you did. You meet someone, you fall in love, you start a family, and everything works out. The reason I chose Thailand was obvious if you think about it. I didn't want to worry about ending up like my father. I didn't want a partner who would put herself first at every opportunity. I wanted someone who would be happy with what I could provide. Someone who would appreciate not having to struggle anymore. Someone who wouldn't create conflict because they understood how good they had it. If I could have had a life where I was supported, where all I had to do was work and provide, and not have to worry about constant demands and arguments, I would have gladly given up some of my own dreams for that. Because in exchange for that, I wouldn't have to live in fear of confrontation every single day. That's why I chose Thailand. I didn't want a relationship in the UK because I didn't want what happened to my father to happen to me. I didn't want to work myself to death and then watch my wife leave and take half of everything because she decided she wasn't happy enough. I thought that if I met someone from humble beginnings in Thailand, they would put stability and security far ahead of their own fleeting desires. They would understand what they had. They would be grateful. I know I was wrong. I've heard it all before, but it's taken me until this age, sitting here at 54, to fully accept just how wrong I was. I gave my life for this belief, and I'm sitting here now watching the sun go down, wondering if I'll ever escape this, or if I'm just too old and too tired. I don't have an answer. I genuinely don't know because I never thought it was possible to be trapped in your own life. Those words don't even make sense when I say them out loud. Trapped in my own life, but that's exactly what I am. And while most people will tell me that I only have myself to blame, and I'll agree with them, the question I keep asking myself is, why didn't anyone tell me I was making a mistake before I made it? Why didn't someone grab me by the shoulders and shake me and say, "Don't do this. You think you're making your life easier, but you're going to make it so much harder." I did what I did to make things easier, not harder, and that's why this hurt so much, because I wanted ease and comfort and peace. Instead, I got stress and resentment and financial ruin. And if you're thinking about doing what I did, moving to Thailand, finding a partner, settling down, please think very carefully, because what you think you're going to get, you won't get. You'll get the opposite, and it will destroy you like it destroyed me. I moved to Thailand when I was 26 years old. It was 1997. I felt completely out of place in the UK. I was painfully shy. I couldn't talk to women. I felt like everyone was judging me everywhere I went. School had been torture. Not the academic side, but the social side. I just wanted to learn. I didn't want to have to interact with people I had nothing in common with. So I worked. I saved. I had one goal: get enough money to go find the place where I felt like I belonged. I didn't save a fortune, maybe $15,000. For that was enough to live in Thailand for at least 2 years, maybe longer if I was careful. And that's all I needed. Time to find my place. I kept thinking back to that family holiday. How happy we'd been, how relaxed I'd felt, how different everything was from the UK. And I couldn't wait to go back and see if I could actually build a life there. I did plan to visit other countries too. Maybe Malaysia, maybe Vietnam, but I never got past Thailand because within a month of arriving, I knew this was where I wanted to stay. The thing I loved most about Thailand was that I didn't feel like everyone was staring at me and judging me. I could walk down the street with my head up. I could strike up conversations with people, something I never would have done back home. I felt like I mattered, like I had value, and the other expats I met were the same. We'd all felt insignificant where we came from. Thailand gave us the chance to feel important. I'd saved enough to live for 2 years without working. 2 years to find my place, figure out a way to earn money, and start building a life. When I arrived in Phuket, I knew within a week that this was it. This was where I'd build everything. I wanted to get in early and grow with the island because it felt like it had so much potential. I chose Pong as my base, And this was only after being in Thailand for about 3 weeks. I still had almost 2 years of savings left. My plan was simple: make an income somehow, find a partner, start a family, do the things you're supposed to do. As you can probably guess, given my complete lack of confidence and how Thailand let me come out of my shell, I gravitated toward the bars because things were easier there. And I also thought it would help me find someone who would be grateful to leave that life behind, someone who would be happy with stability, someone who wouldn't cause problems. I hated confrontation. I hated arguments. I hated people making me feel uncomfortable. And that's another reason Thailand attracted me, because I thought someone who was considerably poorer than me would be so grateful they wouldn't want to argue with me. They wouldn't want to risk what they had. At 26, there weren't many guys my age living in Phuket. There were some, but most expats were older, and especially in the bars, younger guys were rare. So when I walked in, I stood out. The girls would approach me immediately, and it felt like I was the prize. I wanted to be wanted for being me, not for what I had, just for being me. I didn't realize that what I could give was the prize, not who I was. I thought it was about me. I watched the older guys get approached too, men in their 50s and 60s, but I told myself the girls approached me differently, with more genuine interest. That's what I believed. Anyway, one thing I knew for certain, I wasn't going to marry the first girl I met. I wanted to make sure I found someone with similar goals. Actually, I wanted her goals to match mine. I wanted her to be willing to change her ambitions to align with what I wanted, because that's what I thought this type of relationship was supposed to be. I spent a month going to different bars around Pong. I had the best time of my life. For the first time ever, I felt like I was being the person I was meant to be. I was comfortable in my own skin. During that month, I didn't meet anyone serious, but there was no rush. I knew when I found the right person, I'd feel it immediately. Meanwhile, I found a place to rent. A small house, nothing fancy, but it was enough. I could walk to everywhere I wanted to go. It cost me 6,000 baht a month, which was my biggest expense because everything else was incredibly cheap. I need to say something here. I hear people complaining about how expensive Thailand has gotten, how prices have gone up. I don't understand these complaints. Yes, things are more expensive than they were in 1997, obviously, but they're still affordable. The idea is to make more money so you can afford it. But I struggled with that. I struggled badly. Back then, when I rented that house and started just living, I quickly realized my money would last longer than 2 years, maybe 3 years. And that gave me even more confidence that coming to Thailand was the right decision. I wasn't looking for work yet. I was just settling in, getting used to my new life. And more than anything, I wanted to get married and start a family. And when I look back at my younger self, who had those ideas, I want to go back in time and destroy him. I want to beat him senseless for being so stupid. My younger self deserves nothing less than to have the sense beaten into him. And I would have done it gladly if I could. But I know you can't do that. Still, that's what I think about. I spent my days going from bar to bar talking to girls. Usually I didn't feel any connection. Sometimes I'd go on a few dates and see if anything developed, but mostly nothing did. One thing I loved was that most of the girls couldn't speak much English. It was easy, simple conversations. I didn't need deep discussions. I started speaking in broken English so they'd understand me better. Instead of, "Why did you do that?" I'd say, "Why you do that?" instead of, "Would you like to get something to eat?" I'd say, "You want go eat," that became such a habit that years later when I'd talk to someone from the UK, a family member or someone I ran into, I'd have to remind myself to speak properly because I'd been speaking broken English and for so long it was my default. They call it Tinglish here. I think you just remove certain words. No and no, or no with or for. I guess those words don't exist in Thai grammar or something. I do regret not learning Thai. But my decision not to learn it came when I realised I'd never get permanent residency or citizenship. I'd always be on a temporary visa. It felt degrading to learn the language of a country that would never treat me as equal to everyone else. But anyway, about 2 months after I started living this way, I went for a massage. I'd been working out and I always liked getting a Thai massage afterward. And I never expected to meet someone at a massage shop. This was a legitimate place, by the way, not one of those places. At least I thought it was legitimate. I think I'd just turned 27 at this point, or maybe I was a few weeks away from turning 27. I can't remember exactly. And this was a massage place I'd never been to before. I liked trying different ones. I didn't have a favourite. The girl giving me the massage was unlike anyone I'd met before. I'd been spending all my time in bars, and I was starting to feel like a bit of a player because everything was so effortless. But back home, everything had been impossibly difficult. No guarantees, no ease. So when I was getting this massage, I didn't feel nervous about talking to her. I felt confident. She was 22 years old. She said she'd just turned 22 a few weeks earlier. I asked her what date her birthday was to see if it was close to mine, and it turned out her birthday was 3 days before mine. So we laughed about that. I don't know what it was about her. Everyone says this when they meet someone they like, but all I could think about was asking her out. She said she was always busy. She was working 11 hours a day. So I said, what if I pay for a 4-hour massage? Then we can go on a date instead. She said she'd have to check with her boss. She stood up right away halfway through the massage and came back 5 minutes later saying it was fine. I wasn't expecting to go right then. I said, I need to go home and get ready. How about I come back in 2 hours? I was trying to be considerate, and I said, you can choose where you want to go again. Remember, I'm not speaking proper English at this point. It was more like 2 hour I come back, go eat. You like what? You want go where? So you can see the level of her English. I'd picked up a few Thai words by then, so I might have thrown those in, but I don't remember exactly. Also, it was over half my life ago. She seemed happy with that plan. I don't know what time it was, but it was mid-afternoon, so I'd be back around 5 Warlings, and then she'd be done for the day. I was hoping she'd choose somewhere we could have drinks, not just food. I came back a few hours later. She was finishing up with another massage. I waited at a small bar nearby and told the massage shop owner to tell her where I was. They already knew I'd arranged the time off with them, so I felt welcome there. She came out half an hour later and looked even better than I remembered. I asked where she wanted to go. She picked a place and we went for a meal. We talked. It was difficult because of the language barrier, but not too difficult. We could still have a proper conversation, even if it wasn't about anything too serious. We had a great Thai meal. Back then, the prices were insanely cheap. You could order as much as you wanted, and even if there were leftovers, it would cost less than one meal back home. That changed over the years. I started ordering less and less, just to keep the price similar. But that's fair. Everywhere changes. The place where we ate also had a bar area, so we stayed for drinks and talked more. I had no idea the massage shop was anything other than a massage shop. When I went in, I just wanted a legitimate massage. That's what I thought it was. I would learn many years later that when I was waiting for her while she finished that last massage, it was actually one of those kinds of massages. So my entire relationship began on a lie. But from that moment on, it felt like we were meant to be together. I felt amazing around her. I think she felt the same about me. We were reasonably close in age, which was good. Had I thought I was getting into a relationship that would never cause me worry or stress, I should mention that any relationship I was going to enter was meant to last forever. This wasn't something I was taking lightly. She kept working at the massage shop for about a month while we saw each other regularly, but after that month we both decided we wanted to be together. She quit her job. I stopped looking because I'd found my perfect person. Then it was just a matter of getting to know each other better and making sure we were compatible. If things went well over the next few months, we'd get married. And once that was settled, I could focus on finding work and making money in Thailand, which was important because I planned to live there forever. I still had plenty of money at this point. I wasn't worried about running out. I wasn't overspending. She didn't have kids from a previous relationship, so I didn't have to send money to support them, though I did help occasionally with family issues because her family was typical poor villagers. If I could go back to any point in my life and change what I did, it would be this relationship. For actually the decision to get into any relationship that was so financially one-sided with none of the benefits I expected. Everything I did was based on the idea that I just wanted things to be easy, and it made no sense to me how I'd ever have to worry about anything except making money and using that money the way I thought was best for both of us. But what I found myself doing, even from this early stage, was spending money on things I never wanted to spend money on just to keep her happy enough that I could be happy. Some people might call that being a S, but I didn't think I was that. I was just someone who wanted an easy, comfortable relationship with someone who respected the fact that I was the provider. That's all I wanted, and I thought I'd found it. It took me a very long time to realize I hadn't. When I look back at the money I spent over the years, probably the equivalent of a house, I spent it on things I didn't want to spend it on, because the alternative would have been her not being the person I needed her to be in order to function. I had a friend back in the UK who stayed there and did everything the traditional way. He found a partner, they both worked, they both contributed, they built a life based on mutual respect and equal commitment. It didn't end well for him. They got divorced and he lost things he'd worked for, which is exactly what I was trying to avoid, by the way. That was my entire reasoning for doing what I did. I didn't want that to happen to me. I didn't want any pressure or stress or worry that I wouldn't be in full control of the relationship. Getting her to a state of mind that allowed me to function and provide. I felt that was her job. The fact that she wasn't working anywhere else, I thought that was specifically to keep me in the best mental state possible so I could make as much money as possible. But she didn't understand that's what I expected. She wanted to keep doing what she wanted, but without working for it. Not understanding that by doing things my way, it would be easier for her to get what she wanted, easier for me to get what I wanted, and we'd both be in a much better financial position today. It's difficult to accept that I've wasted my life. I've wasted 28 years living with someone completely incompatible with me. And now I'm approaching what should be retirement age with nothing to show for it. The things that happened over the years. When I think about what I accepted, what I put up with, all the stupid and crazy things I did just because I wanted to be in the right frame of mind to work, I needed her to keep me in that frame of mind. And she'd only do it when I was doing things I didn't want to do, which completely defeated the purpose. After we decided to be together, she moved into my place and we started living a normal existence. Although I still wasn't working because I was confirming this relationship was what I thought it would be. Over the next 6 months, we spent most of our time in Pong. We also went to some of the quieter beaches, and we started talking about going to her village so I could meet her family. I was happy. I think she was happy. I felt like I'd found the perfect match. But at least 2 things happened during those 6 months that looking back should have been enough warning to understand this wasn't the relationship I thought it was going to be. The first happened after she'd been living with me for about 2 months. We'd gone out for lunch at a place near Bangla Road, sitting outside near the street, and I heard someone say hello in the distance. That wasn't unusual because the streets were busy. But then another hello closer this time, and she had a shocked look on her face. We both turned and there was this man, probably 70 years old, saying hello to my girlfriend, saying he'd had a wonderful time with her when they were together. This couldn't have been in the past few months because we'd been together. I could tell she was shocked. She pretended not to know him. "I don't know you," she said. He said a few things that made it clear he did know her, but she kept playing innocent. I think he saw how uncomfortable it was and he left. At the time, I chose to believe she'd never seen him before, but he was so old, maybe 70. She was 22 when we met, so she would have been maybe 21 when she knew him. That tells you what she was willing to do. And did that mean this was the same thing with me? Was I just another source of income, someone to get as much from as possible without caring about our future? That's not how she thinks, though. But if she'd thought that way, she would have acted differently and things would have turned out better. If I look back honestly, I should have said, "No, this isn't acceptable. That man isn't making this up, and you're lying." And the fact that she was willing to do that when I'd thought all along this was just a normal massage place that was hard to process. The second thing happened about a month after this encounter. She said there was a family emergency. This was quite common, as I'd learn. I can't remember what the emergency was, but she needed money to fix the problem. It was 25,000, but that was a lot of money at the time. Again, I should have looked at her and thought the fact that she's asking for this is a bad sign. The fact that she's putting her family first at every moment is a bad thing. I should say no. I should end this relationship, but I gave it to her, and 2 months later, another 12,000, and I hate myself for doing that. I should also mention that during those 6 months, I probably spent 80,000 baht more than I should have. Just so she'd act the way I wanted her to act, smile, behave in a way that made me feel good so I could function properly. I didn't expect it to cost money to be happy in my own life. If I wanted to spend money for happiness, why was I in a relationship? I have no problem paying for things when we're together, but every time she asked for something, she was taking from our future. And after enough of those asks, I don't have a future anymore. I was on a one-way trip to hell at this point, and I could have jumped off. I still had time, but I never did. After 6 months, I was so in love with her, I didn't know what I was doing anymore. The money I'd wasted, the old man who'd known her before me, the fact that I could make her act however I wanted based on what I gave her. I should have jumped off that vehicle, even if we were going 150 kilometers an hour, and I'd have gotten badly hurt. But I didn't. Next, we went to her village. It was in Nakhon Sitamarat, a province I'd heard about from many different girls since arriving in Thailand. Back then, compared to today, it was so different. The roads were terrible. The infrastructure was so much worse. Thailand has developed those places quickly. I'll give them that. But they're still far behind the cities. We arrived at her parents' house, which was as basic as you could imagine. This was a long time ago, so it's hard to explain because you might have seen videos today of rural Thai houses and think they're not that bad. But back then, they were so much worse. This particular house didn't have running water inside. Most houses in the village did, but theirs was a bit outside the main village, and they didn't. This was in the late 1990s. That was shocking to me, though they did get it not long after. The people, though, friendly, relaxed, smiling, like they didn't have a care in the world. Her father was happy lying in a hammock drinking cheap whiskey. Her mother was happy chewing betel nut which had destroyed her teeth. And her younger brother seemed to be on track to end up working in Pong in some bar or another. At that moment, I felt happy because I was with this girl meeting her family and we were serious. And I thought I'd have the life I wanted because I'd never have stress or worry. Her happiness should already be at maximum because she didn't have to live like this anymore. That's how I saw it. She didn't need to live in these conditions anymore. She didn't need to work at a massage shop for almost nothing. All she needed to do was make sure I stayed in the right frame of mind so we could have the best life possible. We talked about marriage before visiting, but I didn't expect to get married during this trip. But her parents brought it up immediately, and I agreed because we were planning to get married anyway. Why wait? They arranged it for the following week, which meant spending a whole week in the village, an experience that makes you grateful for what you have and grateful that you're never going to have to worry about your wife being unhappy because she should already be so happy just to be with me. She shouldn't expect anything more. When we got married, I had to do what I didn't want to do, which was pay sin sodom. When I told my girlfriend, soon-to-be wife, that this made me upset and angry, she didn't care how I felt. She didn't understand that by me spending 60,000 baht on sins, this would hurt our future. And I also paid for the entire wedding, which was another 60,000 baht. It wasn't as expensive as it would be today. But she didn't understand that by me using that money for that, it would damage our future happiness and our ability to build investments we could live on. All she cared about was making her family happy. Her family was happy, so she was happy, and she acted happy around me. She didn't know she was causing me internal turmoil, but it can't have been that bad, because I went through with the marriage when I should have said, no, I'm not paying. If you don't like it, I'm leaving. That's what I should have done, and I'd advise anyone in a similar situation to do exactly that. Put yourself and your future ahead of anyone else's present, even the person you love more than anything, because it's for their benefit too, which is something she never understood. After getting married, I couldn't wait to leave the village. And as a traditionalist, I wanted a honeymoon, something I thought you just did. We went to Krabi, a place I'd never been. At the time, it was so different from today. It was fun to be somewhere new with her. I was happy. I think she was happy. Even though I'd done things differently from how I would have if it were just me, I was still reasonably happy. We stayed in a nice hotel, went out to eat, I paid for everything, and I set a budget for the honeymoon, but she didn't understand that anything over that budget was coming out of our future. I allowed it to happen just to make sure she was happy, which meant I could be happy, not knowing I was causing myself stress and heartache by spending money that shouldn't have been spent. I used to think it's only 1,000 baht, and as I'm telling this story, I've tried to count how many times I spent only 1,000 baht. I can think of hundreds of times, sometimes more than 1,000. It's only this. It's only that. We could have had a house if I just said no all those times. I'd advise anyone not to say it's only 1,000 baht. I'm not unhappy at this time. I'm actually happy. And that's the sad thing. I'm happy even though I'm not being financially sensible. Because if I was financially sensible, I wouldn't be as happy because she wouldn't be as happy because she's not getting anything. She should have gotten what I wanted to give when I wanted to give it and been happy with it. She should never have asked for anything because asking meant she'd have less in the future, considerably less. If you think about it, that 12,000 baht she got for something she desperately wanted when we got back from the honeymoon, that could be worth 150,000 baht today if we'd invested it properly. And I saw it like that at the time, but I still didn't do it the way I wanted because I thought I was in Thailand. I thought I was with someone from Thailand. I thought it was supposed to be easy. But things got much, much harder from here. I think at this point I'm 27. She's 23. We're married and it's 1998. After the honeymoon, I still had enough money where I could last another year, even though I'd spent way more than I wanted, but I started looking for work, looking for something to do to earn an income. The plan was to work for a while, save as much as possible, and start a business. We both wanted children, but we wanted to wait first. From 1998 to about 2003, I worked as an English teacher. It didn't pay much, but it was enough to live on. And it would have been enough to save if I'd done things my way. I could have saved about 6,000 baht a month. Not a lot, but 6,000 a month over 5 years could have been 360,000 baht. That could have been a deposit on a place to live. But I didn't save it, mainly because I wanted my wife to be continuously happy, so I could be happy, and I could only make her happy by doing things I didn't want to do. It almost felt like she could make me happy just by acting the way I wanted, but I could only make her happy by doing things that took my time, my effort, my energy, things I didn't want to do, and I didn't have extra time to do things my way. I should have seen it for what it was and escaped before I got trapped even more. But I didn't. It was in 2003 when my wife became pregnant with our first child. Because of that, I needed to make more money. I was struggling to find other opportunities. I didn't have money to invest in my own ideas. And looking at how Phuket has developed, if I'd had money at the right time, we could have invested in properties that today would be giving us huge income. But I didn't have time to do what I needed to do. I wasn't saving what I needed to save because I was living in the moment, making sure my wife and soon my child were happy. When our son was born in 2004, I took on extra work in the evenings as a private tutor, but all the income was going out. I wasn't able to save anything at all. The most I ever had saved was maybe 20,000 baht equivalent. That was it. Living month to month, every single month, every bit of hard work I put in, that money didn't go into what I wanted. Investments for the future. It went to a new phone for my wife or something else she wanted, and of course, I expected to pay for things for my son, but my wife shouldn't have been wanting these things because it was ruining both our futures, and I wasn't strong enough to say no. My salary then was 32,000, but I was earning another 6,000 as a private tutor. We'd moved to a house on the outskirts of Patong. That cost 12,000 a month. That was nearly a third of my salary just in rent, plus utilities and everything else. One thing I hated about Thailand at this point was that I wasn't Thai, so I couldn't get a mortgage to buy a house or condo. The rent I'd paid over my entire life in Thailand would have been enough to buy a house outright. But it didn't work like that because I chose Thailand. I had to rent forever. Back then, it was much harder to get mortgages in your wife's name, especially when she didn't work. So we were stuck. We were stuck because I'm not Thai. Stuck because I wasn't strong enough to save money. Stuck because all she could do was live in the moment. And I didn't want to live in the moment. I wanted to live for the future, for a possible retirement. But when you're in your 20s and 30s, you think there's still time to fix things. When I turned 35, in 2006, my wife got pregnant for the second time. At this point, I was earning maybe 4,000 baht more than before, working all day at school, evenings, Saturdays. Sunday was my only day off. I turned 35 and had nothing to my name. 2 kids, a wife who constantly wanted things, not understanding that she was getting older, losing her looks, and if she wasn't sensible, we wouldn't have a future. And I kept going along with it, even though I hated myself every time I spent money beyond what I thought we should spend. It's only 1,000 baht. It's only 1,000 baht. I heard that thousands of times. Literally thousands. In 2006, I was closer to 40 than 30. My life since getting married had been a constant struggle, just to keep up with the little things my wife wanted to do that I didn't want to do just to make her happy. My 2 kids were wanting things. I was fortunate Thailand was cheap compared to today, so we could still live okay. I could have saved money, but I didn't, and I didn't have the benefit of anything compounding over the years. I think the reason for this is because I chose Thailand. I chose easy. I chose a partner who didn't work, thinking I'd have control, but it was exactly like a relationship I'd have had back home, except my wife wasn't bringing anything to the table. Yet, she was still wanting things as if she was. I kept changing jobs occasionally, but all I could really do in Thailand was teach. While that gave me a decent life before, it was becoming clear that by 2012, with 3 kids, things were tight. I was 41, my wife was 37, I was earning maybe 48,000 baht for everything I was doing. I was lucky to have a job at a school with very favourable rates for teachers' children. Because of that, I found myself stuck at that school until my youngest left, which meant over 10 years at the same place. It was an awful existence. I wasn't putting anything away. I was spending on current things I didn't want to spend on every single day. My salary gradually increased. Before CO hit, I was earning about 68,000 BAT. Around that time, we moved into a condo because my 2 eldest had already moved out, and luckily, because they're Thai, they had an easier time than me. They're doing better than I am now. I'm grateful for that. If I look back, and I've jumped ahead quite a bit because there wasn't much to talk about over those years except working, paying for my family's life, and any spare money somehow making its way to my wife. I'd say it was around 2017 when I really started to resent my wife, but I didn't show it. I think she started to resent me because I didn't provide well enough for her, and that's the problem. If she'd done things my way from the beginning, we'd have a better life now. And I could say that if I'd been strong enough to resist her demands, we'd have a better life now. But would we even still be together? Probably not. She would have gotten bored and left, and that would have been better for me. So anything different would have been better than this. We were 2 extremely incompatible people with completely different views of the world and how things should be. I didn't know she was like this until the past few years when I hit 50 and realised all I had to my name was a very old 2015 Honda Jazz and the items in the condo we're renting. We've never been able to buy our own place because I've never been able to use the money I earned for what I wanted to use it for because I wasn't strong enough and because my wife didn't understand the concept of future planning. I know it's my fault more than anyone's. I should have known what I was doing, but I didn't. That's why I think it's important to share this because people might be in a similar position today, about to make the same mistakes, and you'll be in constant freefall, never hitting the bottom. You're just falling further away from where you want to be. There are branches sticking out that you could grab and do things your way, but you never do because if you grab that branch, you think everything will come crashing down and it'll all have been for nothing. That's what it feels like. My wife and I are still together today, but one of the worst things that happened was in 2021. My wife was approaching 50, and somehow I found out she'd been talking to someone from Australia. I don't know how she thought that was appropriate at her age. But having never worked a day since we'd been together, yet complaining we didn't have enough money, not understanding that if we just saved and invested, we could have had a better future. She wanted excitement, she joined some social media group and started chatting with this guy. While I was working, she was messaging him. I think it went on for a few months. He was actually someone I knew casually, which made it worse. He sent me a screenshot of their conversation and I had to confront her. She said she was bored. She didn't enjoy her life. Her life didn't turn out how it should have. This man made her feel special again. It looked serious. Then suddenly he stopped talking to her and she came to understand that maybe what she did wasn't right. That destroyed me because I wasted my life for her. Let's call it what it is. I wasted my life. I did everything I didn't want to do for her. I always put her immediate pleasure ahead of our long-term future. And that's how she repaid me. That's when it hit me. I'd wasted my life. I had everything wrong about how the world worked, about how Thailand worked, about how people from extremely humble beginnings thought. It only made sense to me all those years ago when I saw her family's house. No running water, terrible conditions. I thought that was her benchmark. Anything better would be amazing. But if I look at how I grew up, everything I had was better than what I have today. Everything she has, even though she doesn't think it's good enough, is considerably better than what she had before. I can't understand that mentality. It doesn't make sense to me, and it still doesn't after nearly 28 years together. I had no choice but to suffer the disgrace of my wife's betrayal and accept it, because my alternative was having nothing. I haven't saved any money. This is difficult to say. I have about 95,000 baht to my name. That's all I have, and I'm working online now as a teacher. My next payment, about 65,000 baht, is due in 3 weeks. My youngest has already left home. I'm fortunate my kids are having better lives than me, but I know exactly where that 65,000 baht will go, and I know what I'd like to use it for. This has been the curse of my existence since I've been with my wife. I made my life worse to make my wife's life better. But she doesn't think her life is good enough. It is better than it should be based on where she came from. But mine is worse. That's what she doesn't get. That's 65,000 B, but will go to rent first. 22,000. Utilities and internet 5,000. I put 6,000 a month aside for fuel and car insurance. 12,000 for food shopping for both of us. 6,000 for eating out occasionally for both of us. 5,000 for myself for things I might need, and 9,000 for my wife to buy things she doesn't need. I'm paying for food and everything else. She doesn't need that 9,000, but I give it to her even though I don't want to. I've been doing that for 28 years, sometimes more than that. 28 years. Let's add it up. That's about 3 million baht. 3 million baht my wife has spent on things she didn't need, and I let it happen knowing it wasn't right. If we compounded that over the years, that could be double or more. 67, 8 million baht that my wife spent on things she didn't need. How would I spend this 65,000 if my wife was who I thought she should be, which I believe would have been better for her too? I'd rent somewhere for 12,000 instead. I don't mind downgrading. We don't have kids at home anymore. That's 10,000 saved. The 5,000 for utilities would stay the same. I wouldn't have a car, so I'd save there. I'd spend the same on shopping, but I'd spend extra going out to eat, maybe 10,000 a month, because that gives me pleasure, and I'd try to save the rest. I'd try to save 30,000, but I'm not saving any of it. I never have because of my own stupidity. My wife's lack of understanding about future planning. That's gone on since we've been together. I know I'm to blame, but even still, it shocks me she never understood. To add insult to injury, I don't even have health insurance because I can't afford it. And that brings us to today. It's my day off from work. My wife is out doing whatever she's doing with money I gave her. And I'm sitting here wanting to have a few drinks, but not wanting to spend the money because I know it should be used for something else. Why can my wife go have drinks with her friends with money I earned, but I don't want to use that money because I know it should be saved? I allowed this to happen, and it's reached the point where I don't know how to salvage my life. I'm 54. I've been teaching as long as I can remember, and I hate it. I never wanted to be a teacher. I wanted my own business. I was always clever in certain ways, but obviously not in life because I destroyed my own. When I look to the future, I don't see anything getting better. How can life improve from here? My wife and I, after her betrayal, still talk and get along, but there's no romance yet. It's like, why am I providing for my wife when she's not providing for me? I had a conversation with her recently. I've had so many over the years about saving money, and she always says, "Save money then." But then she says, "Can we go out tonight?" And I say, "Okay," thinking I'll save later because her immediate happiness makes me happy. Then I think about what happens in 6 years when I'm 60. No insurance, no retirement money. Will I keep working until I can't and then have nothing? I've lived outside the UK so long I won't get a state pension. I don't have inheritance coming. I don't have anything coming and I'm completely ruined. I haven't had a break from work in so long because working online means a break equals no money. I get Sunday every week. That's it. Thailand was the worst thing to ever happen to me, but it was supposed to be the opposite. It would have been the best thing if I'd thought about things properly, if I'd understood things for what they were instead of having a vision that wasn't right. I see young people moving to Thailand today. Some will do fine, but most of the people I met over the years left Thailand. Not many stay for the long run. Those who do things like I did, thinking they're making life easier, will only make it harder. Not understanding until it's too late, or they'll understand but do it anyway, and it's awful to think about. I'm 54 years old, 95,000 baht in savings, just over 20,500, a car worth maybe the same, and that's it. Well, what am I going to do? Because all I want to do is go back in time and destroy my younger self for being so foolish. But the only thing I want to do, I can't. So I guess I just keep going and hope that one day things somehow change, but I know they won't.